All right, guys, we're going to be doing a gradient collage with a 3-color analogous color scheme. Here is what you're going to need. A piece of drawing paper, it's that heavier paper than copy paper. A magazine if you need extras, see me or Mrs. Cantrell. A pair of scissors. An envelope to keep your magazine clippings in, your trusty glue stick, and what I call a messy mat, or kind of a scrap piece of paper that can get dirty. So what in the world is a gradient collage? A gradient collage is something that gradates in color or value. Some of you call it ombre, but as you can see in these examples, we're going from one color to another color. And it's a very nice transition. You want it to be really gradual. So let's talk about what analogous means. Analogous means that they are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So as you see here, I have a color wheel pictured, and we want you to choose 3 colors. Now, I chose 4 for mine. I'm okay if you guys choose up to 6 even. You want to do the whole color wheel. But you've got to choose colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, exactly next to each other. So you could do red, orange, yellow. You could do yellow, green, blue, etc., etc. The second thing that you need to decide is you need to decide what orientation your gradation is going to go. So is it going to go vertical, which means it gradates from the top down? Are you going to do horizontal from left to right? Are you going to do diagonal, which means that it's on an angle? That's an example of horizontal. Here's an example of diagonal going on the angle. In the last option that you have, probably the hardest option is radial. So that's when you have sort of a burst of color illuminating from the center and moving out. So you can choose which gradient best fits your artistic needs. And of course, you can decide your own analogous color scheme. It's all up to you. I'm going to be choosing vertical, and I'm going to be going with a purple, blue, green, and a little bit of magenta color scheme for mine. So you're going to want to get out your magazine. The very first thing you're going to do is do some clippings. And I'm specifically looking for some purples, blues, greens, and a little bit of pinks. When you are originally going through the magazine, you want to pick areas that have large chunks of color. I would say about 2 fingers of the size. You can fit any of these clippings in your magazine in order to keep them safe, or you can have them on your working space, but the envelope is to keep them safe when you're taking them back and forth to school too. So as you can see, I cut something out in a really rough way. I'm going to continue to do this for all my colors. All right, so now that I've got all my colors sort of rough cut, I've got to get a lot more specific. I don't want this white and black space around my colors. I want to get in close. So I'm gonna shoot to have everything be around 1 inch. I think if you get bigger than 2 inches, especially since our paper is so small, it's not going to look right. You want to have these transitions to be very subtle, so how you do that is by making them small. And you're going to want to cut your shapes into squares or rectangles. It can be your choice what you do, but you should always be making sure they're about 0.5 inches to an inch big, really not that big. You can see I'm telling you that I made this 3 inches big, and that's way too big. A 1/2 inch to an inch is a really great size. So I'm going to do this to all of my pieces now. Woohoo! So after all that work, all that cutting, it is now time to start gluing. Just as a reminder, I'm choosing a vertical gradation. You need to make sure that you know which way that you're going. So I'm going to gradate from green to blue to purple to pink, a tiny little bit of pink. So I chose a 4-color analogous color scheme. Now, when we are working on this gradation, it's really important that you use overlapping. If you don't overlap, it's not going to gradate nice. So to show you what overlapping looks like, you can look to my display case where as Mrs. Cantrell says, I painted with paper and I put pieces over each other, intersecting with each other, and I did the same thing with my desk. You're kind of doing this same effect, but in the order of your colors. So overlapping is not when you have things butt up to each other. It's when you have one thing a little bit on top of another thing. When you're using your glue stick, it's going to be really important that you do the gluing on your messy mat. You don't want to get all the stickiness on your paper. I also recommend having a clean hand and a dirty hand. So what I mean by that is my left hand is getting lots of glue on it right now. My right hand is getting no glue on it, so I'm going to use my right hand to press down the papers. So my left hand, the messy hand, gets the yucky side of the glue, and my right hand does the clean swiping. And I'm going to continue to overlap and work through my gradient collage. One more thing that I want to add as you guys are working on your collages is you might have to cut your shapes as you go. So you might realize that a shape doesn't work. Just cut it before you glue it and just keep on going. So of course, the last thing you guys want to do is check for any open white spaces that you have. You might have to cut some pieces really small to get in them. And then you want to flip your page over and you want to cut any excess that might have gone over the edges. That way you have a nice clean edge to your beautiful collage. I recommend waiting for your glue to dry and to do this so you're not cutting wet paper. And then ta-da! You have a gorgeous collage. Look at all these different ways that you can go about it. Great work, guys.